So today we're going to be talking about mega churches versus house churches and the argument between there, because a lot of people in the mega church world, they tend to go to it just because it's convenient and you can get lost in a mega church. If you just want to be private, you don't want to talk to anybody, a mega church typically becomes the place for you where you can choose not to get connected with anyone. You can just kind of get lost in the crowd. But on the flip side, mega churches can be very effective at reaching out to the community because they have a lot more funds to pull from. They have a lot more volunteers to pull from. But on the flip side, you have house churches. And house churches, you can't get lost in a house church, right? You can't stay invisible in a house church.
Unless it's a mansion, then you can get lost in the house church.
You can get lost in the house church. But because as soon as you go into a house church, everyone's going to know you, everyone's going to see you, and everyone's going to connect with you. You can't get lost in there, and so you have to get connected with a fellowship. But on the flip side, you're not technically as effective, per se, on a number standard as you are with a mega church. What's your preference? Do you prefer a mega church or a house church?
We had just recorded this podcast.
I know.
A few days ago. Actually, no, right now. Literally, we recorded it, but
we realized we didn't hit the record button.
We
so
somehow
welcome.
Didn't realize that. I realized that I hit the record button. He didn't hit the record button on his end.
I'm the audio guy. He's the video guy.
I know.
Yeah, I screwed that up. So
it's fine. It's fine.
I'm sorry.
We'll forgive him for now. No, we won't. Anyways, how many times have I forgot to hit record? Too many. Okay. Anyways, no, I don't think it matters. So let me rewind everything that I said.
Yeah, I know, right? You said some good stuff too.
I know. I was. Oh man, I said a lot of great things. I don't know if I'm gonna have the same fire now, but yeah, no, I don't think it's a problem to have a mega church or a house church. I think what matters is the content that is being preached. If you're preaching the gospel, I'm going to try to say this again like I said last time.
Yeah.
But if you're preaching the gospel where sinners are being convicted of their sin and they are coming to the recognition that they need Christ as their Savior, then, I don't think it matters if you're a house church or a mega church. But if you are aiming to be a celebrity pastor, putting yourself on the pedestal, which I see is the problem with mega churches, where the congregation can't interact with the person that they're talking to or who is speaking to them. Like Lakewood, you can't really interact with Joel Osteen unless you have connections.
Yeah, you're lucky to even meet him.
Yeah, really.
Mm-hmm.
You might see him.
Mm-hmm.
You might be able to go shake his hand and say hi, but how possible is it for you to actually go to his house and sit down and have a Bible study with him and talk to him? Probably slim to none. You're probably not going to do that unless you know him.
Yeah.
Which I think is a problem. And I'm not specifically attacking Joel Osteen. I'm just saying that, I kind of am attacking Joel Osteen. But
he's a favorite person to attack.
Yeah,
so is this church for whatever reason. It's because y'all are big. That's why.
And you're wrong on a lot of things.
Sometimes say random stuff.
Yeah, that is not biblical at all. But it's fine. That's not fine, but it's fine.
Thank you for what you're doing in our community, though.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, man. Go ahead, bring Kanye again. Well, we want him. No, we don't. We do want him as a Christian. We don't want him as a celebrity.
Yeah, not as a celebrity preacher.
Yes. Oh, man. What if I ever I'm never going to get a deal with Kanye anyway, so it's fine.
His moment he sees this.
Yeah, he's going to be like... anyways... Yeah, no, I don't think megachurches are bad per se. Again, goes back to the content that's being preached, and it goes back to the intent of the pastor and the staff on how to reach out to the body, on how they reach out to the body. If they're not seeking to make disciples, if they're not seeking to grow in community, if shepherds don't know who their sheep are, I think that's kind of problematic. So
how does a megachurch deal with that?
Being intentional about meeting their people, going out and
5,000 people.
It is difficult, but starts with one handshake at a time, I guess.
No 5,000 people personally.
Yeah, I'm not. Well, okay. How did Jesus do it though? Because he fed 5,000.
Yeah, he fed 5,000, but he wasn't in a close relationship with all of them.
Right. But I still think that
you can shake 5,000 people's hands, but you can't have a meaningful conversation.
True, you can't. And I'm not advocating for that.
Yeah,
I was just kidding when I said go and shake their hands, each of them.
No, I'm just saying like real fast personal connection.
Yeah,
you know.
for sure. Well, it's the people that you disciple, and I know that these churches do that. Like Elevation will have like their main group of people, and then they'll go out and disciple other people.
Others, and it kind of spreads down.
So yeah, I don't think it's necessarily a problem to have a mega church. Maybe I just backtracked everything I just said. I don't know if I'm about to do that right now.
No, I think you said that it's not a problem to have a mega church. It's just it depends on the message.
Yeah, I think the main thing is content.
Mm-hmm.
What are you preaching about? If it's emotion driven and it's not biblical, then okay, your mega church is a waste.
Yeah,
it is a waste. And same thing with the house church. If your house church is preaching an emotionally based message that has nothing biblical in it, then your house church is a waste. Doesn't matter if you have 5 members or 55 million members. If you are not pursuing the true gospel, it's a waste of time for everyone.
But that's it. Yeah. Bum, 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 bum. Okay. No, so I think you're right on that. And what was it that Jesus said? The Great Commission, go into all the world and preach the gospel and make disciples.
Right.
So I think the disciple-making process is at least 50% of what the church's mission should be. And it's the pastor's responsibility, I believe, to ensure that is happening, that discipleship is happening, especially in a megachurch setting. I know we haven't gotten to house churches yet, but especially for the megachurch setting, the senior pastor has got to be discipling a core group with the intention of that core group discipling their own core group and all the way down the line.
Right.
Filters all the way down to the body. One friend of mine said, and he's I forget what ministry he's in right now, but he was giving a leadership lecture, and he said, as a pastor, I can't know everybody, but everybody can know somebody.
Yeah.
So like the senior pastor may not know personally every single person what's going on in their life, but he can have leaders who can know all of that.
Right.
Who does know all of that. Like, who is so-and-so? It's like, oh, he's connected to this, he's connected to that. So yeah, tell me about him. So you can get like a profile on whoever it is that you're reaching out to, especially if they're going to a hospital. You'll know whose leader he is, like, especially if he's connected to a group. This is why it's so important, especially if you're in a mega church. Get connected to a small group. Just going to church on Sunday is not enough.
Yeah. Really.
I gave the statistic earlier in our failed attempt to record, but there's not a statistic. There was a poll.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, I had a brain freeze right there. There was a poll taken in America.
There's been a lot of that today. So
yeah, I know. There's a poll taken here in America of how many people consider themselves churchgoers, and surprisingly, there's a lot of people who consider themselves churchgoers.
Mm-hmm.
But when it came down to it, when they said define what a churchgoer is, how many times do you go to church, the average response was once a month, and they consider themselves a churchgoer.
Nice.
So if you're in that camp and you consider yourself a churchgoer, but you just go once a month, that is definitely not enough to get connected into a church body. You need to get really plugged in, because one of the weaknesses of a megachurch, I think I said this earlier, is you can get lost in the crowd, especially if you're a person that just doesn't want to talk to anybody. You just want to go get a feel-good message. Yeah, the megachurch is the place for you to go. You can get lost in the crowd and never get connected with anybody. But I know a lot of good megachurches, they constantly push small groups.
Right.
Like, get connected in a group, get connected, volunteer, serve. Do this, do that, but stay connected, right? And it's up to the individual to do that. Now, obviously with the house churches, you can't do that. You don't have that luxury to disappear.
Right.
So just kind of flipping it now over to house churches, my experience in seeing how house churches get formed here in the States has more often than not, house churches have been started, and I'm not saying this is the case for every house church, but a house church gets started is because someone got offended at somebody in a mega church, and they decided, you know what, mega churches suck. and I'm going to start my own church, and it's going to be a house church. And it's the biblical form.
Yeah.
This is how churches are supposed to be. It says they met house to house and they broke bread with each other. This is the biblical format of how churches should be run, is in house churches. And so you get a lot of people who hate on mega churches and house churches.
Yeah.
They'll just hate on mega churches. Oh no, they're bad. They're bad. And so it usually becomes a club to bash mega churches.
Yeah.
Is what house churches tend to become.
I've noticed that. Well, I mean, because even some mega churches bash each other, but
Yeah.
I mean, like,
Oh, for sure.
like
Yeah.
John MacArthur's church will probably bash
Everyone.
most people
Right.
out of like well, I mean, like most Baptist churches will do that, but I've noticed that, and I understand that we have to call it the sheep, or not the sheep, the goats. Yes.
There you go. Call it the wolves.
The wolves. Yeah, and I'm for that. I 100% am. Calling out Lakewood is fine when they got it wrong. Calling out whoever you need to call out is okay when they got it wrong.
Yeah, well, especially when they don't admit it.
Yeah.
They gotta.
Creflo Dollar or Jesse Duplantis asking for $1 trillion planes. That's not righteousness.
Kenneth Copeland, stop it.
Yeah.
Just stop.
Stop rebuking Corona like that. That's not how it works. People are still going to get sick. Like, gravity still exists.
Right.
It's real.
There's still germs.
Yeah.
Germs exist.
Space is real.
Bacteria.
I've actually had this thought, and this is getting more metaphysical than anything, but I've learned that word now. Meta.
Yeah, meta.
I didn't know what it was before, and I now know what it is. I'm like, oh, I do that all the time.
Getting meta.
Yeah, getting meta. This is going off topic for a second, but if you die in space, right, and you're all alone, you fly a rocket into space in the depths of space,
Yeah.
and you die all alone.
Yeah.
Do you think that God would just revive you in space, or would you go to heaven?
Wait, what are you talking about? Like when Jesus returns?
Yeah. Would you just be like revived in heaven, or I mean in space, like?
And you're like, you die.
or would you go straight to heaven? So my thought here is, I mean, obviously you go to heaven, right? It's like,
Yeah.
that's the thought here. Like that's where you would go because your body's still technically.
Yeah, you're a flesh bag.
Yeah, it's part of the physical world. But I always had that thought, and it creeped me out. And I was like, well, if I die in space, then will I technically die in space? Will God just keep me alive forever, or will I die in space?
Here's another crazy thought. Okay, so the Daimyos, when Christianity was first introduced in Japan, I know we're going to Japan now from space.
Konnichiwa.
But
Oh, jeez.
when they wanted to crush Christianity and stop getting influenced by the Western world
They sent
or
them
the
all to
Catholic
space.
priests, what they would do in their executions.
Like it would be the real thing.
know.
No, they
No,
didn't do that.
They didn't, even though they could have. No, with their rockets.
With their rockets built by Elon,
1 million firecrackers.
the
just
Japanese
shot
version of
into
Elon.
shot into space.
J-Lo.
Yeah, well, actually, did you know the NASA equivalent for Japan?
J-Lo?
What? No, JAXA.
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 Japan
Don't-
Aerospace.
So, you sure? I don't know the name. I don't know the.
Oh, okay.
I just know the acronym.
Sorry, what were we about to finish?
But anyway,
Don't look that up. Is that what you're about to say?
no.
I thought that's what you were about to say.
I said you can look it up. I just don't know what the acronym stands
I
for.
thought he was literally about to say JAXA. Don't look that up.
No,
I was like,
no.
okay,
You can
why
look
would
that
why
up.
would
It's
you tell me
fine.
that? Because now I'm gonna look it up.
No, okay. So anyway, the Daimyos, in order to crush Christianity, they did this form of execution where they would execute him, and a lot of times it would be really cruel type of executions. But they would cut the heads off and bury the heads in a separate burial area from the bodies,
So that
because if the resurrection was true,
they couldn't get resurrected.
couldn't get resurrected because they don't got their heads.
But that's not how that works, right?
Right. That's not how that works.
Unless I'm missing something here.
Thank God. That's not how that works. Be a bunch of weird zombies being resurrected. Which, atheists, you got it wrong. We're not a bunch of zombies walking around, okay? Jesus
No.
wasn't a zombie. Gosh.
Resurrection is not what you think it means.
No. not in the natural sense.
It means restoration.
Yeah, if you think that everything that there is to the world is just the natural, what you can see, touch, smell, and hear, I think you're a very shallow person for just acknowledging the physical universe rather than the metaphysical things that you can't measure with science.
Right.
So anyway, yeah, mega churches and house churches. Talking about that. Now, what I did notice, especially in nations, countries that don't have the mega church format,
Right.
house churches are very prevalent there.
Yeah, because some of them don't even have the option.
Right.
Like China, like you kind of have to go underground.
Yeah.
And hide, which.
Yeah, and they're the largest church in the world. There's more believers in China than anywhere else in the world.
For the kids watching, by the way, underground.
The Chinese government listening.
Oh yes.
This is the truth, man, and you can't stop it.
Underground doesn't necessarily mean underground. I always thought that too.
Oh.
I always thought underground. I was like, where are they going? Like, how are they going underground?
I guess that should be explained.
Yeah, it's not underground. Like, not actually underground. It's like,
think of the term under the table.
yeah, there you go. They're not under tables though.
They're not
either.
under.
They're under roofs, like actual. They're going to actual houses, but it's like in secret. That's probably a better way to say it. But it's a longer way to say it, so it's just easier to say underground. Anyways, back to what we were talking about.
Yeah, I know.
Back to what we were saying.
Back to what we were saying. So majority of nations, they don't have the megachurch format like America does. It's more often than not house churches, and they're house churches because they're built by necessity. It would be awesome if we had the funds and the resources to give them to have churches that were big and could impact their community. And there are a few churches like that. So I grew up in Ukraine because my parents were missionaries over there. And since I was 4 years old, and when I turned 19, that's when I came back here to the States, and I actually went to Bible school. Christ for the Nations, shout out. Great Bible school to go to, just letting you know.
Is it though?
Okay, Christ for the Nations, link in the description.
No, not in the description.
Go.
Unless we get an affiliate link.
Yeah.
If we get an affiliate link from CFNI.
They're a nonprofit. Anyway.
They are the greatest.
Anyway, so I grew up in Ukraine, and my parents, every 3 years, we would go to a different country, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we would alternate every year what country we would go to. I don't know how they pulled this off with 3 boys, but because we lived in Ukraine, we could go to any European nation there. 'Cause it was just hop, skip, and a jump.
Hop, skip, and a jump.
to anywhere, really over there. So we would visit those places, and somehow my dad had connections with random churches, and so we attended a French church, Polish church, German church.
Danishes.
All of that stuff, and more often than not, it was a house church,
mm-hmm.
and they didn't necessarily meet in a house, but some sort of conference room or something like that. And then on the off years, we would come here to the States, or we'd go to the Philippines. So it would be America, random country, Philippines, America, random country, Philippines, right? And we alternate in between there. And only in America did I get the concept of what a megachurch was. Mm. The biggest megachurch that I went to in Ukraine was actually a Messianic church. That was the biggest megachurch I ever went to, and that service never ended.
Yeah.
I think I was telling you about that the other day. There was a Hillsong church in Kiev, and I hope it's still there. Gosh, I haven't looked that up. But it was maybe 500 people, and that was considered a large church, 500-member church. Hillsong Kiev. At the time, this was back in 2007.
Speaking of Hillsong, how do you, so mega churches and Hillsong and baby church, little churches, I'm about to answer my own question here in a second, but specifically with mega churches, cases of like sexual assault or just like other kind of wicked things going on, not just sexual nature, but, like theft or whatever. Well, kind of like Lakewood. Yeah. Where they had the theft that went on.
And they found the money in the toilet.
And the guy, when he saw it, he was like, "Holy crap!" Funny. I'm a prankster, jokester. No, I'm not. Anyways,
it did happen.
It did.
Maybe link in the description. Maybe we should put a link to the article.
Yeah, we'll do that.
That was crazy.
Aaron will do that.
Yeah.
Anyways,
the editor and the audio
and the audio guy. So you know what? I'll give him a break. It's fine. What was I saying? Anyways, no. There's a lot of ums in this. Yes, sexual assault and Hillsong.
Yes.
So what are your thoughts on that?
Them
You know what?
covering
That
it
was
up.
such a
Yeah, that was kind of
big
broad.
What are your thoughts on sexual assault
and
are you
Hillsong.
are you okay
I'm
with
trying to
it?
put them together now.
Do you justify it?
Hillsong.
He said yes. Kill him.
no.
Let me make this more clear.
Yeah. Like,
how do you manage that in a mega church?
Oh, okay, yeah. I mean, oddly enough, our first pilot for this, we were talking about affairs and pastors, right? And I think what happened with Jeremy Foster at Hope City, right? And I know actually the ARC organization that they were under, it's getting a lot of flack now because apparently there's been multiple pastors who have been accused of rape and affairs.
I actually saw that article.
Yeah, kind of sad, but I don't think that's due in part to the system that they built. I think it's more due in part that the pastors experienced a moral failure.
Right.
And you can't control that in a person. The person has to be disciplined enough and humble enough to admit when they're struggling and actually go to their accountability, their mentors, their pastors, and whoever it is that they're under, because you can hide crap.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that the system failed. It means you failed as a person. So I don't think it's right to criticize the ARC because, there's going to be thieves in the church. There's going to be liars in the church. It doesn't mean the church failed.
Right.
It means that that person made a personal choice and chose not to honor God and sin against God.
Yeah.
So I think prevention, I don't see how that can happen other than the person that they put in charge as a pastor. We pray that he's humble enough and wise enough to avoid situations that may put him in a compromising situation.
Right.
Now, the follow-up, I know their follow-up, I think, is pretty solid. Do you know anything about their follow-up?
For Hillsong specifically, or for
for Hope City, for ARC churches in general, they have a follow-up process for fallen pastors.
What was their fault? I don't know what it is.
Yeah, they're actually making a retreat area now, and I think it's Alabama at the main church site for pastors who have fallen, so that they can get away and they can get counseled, they can get mentored, and experience a period of restoration. Now,
I've heard people I know what you're talking about. I've heard people criticize that.
mm-hmm.
I don't know what to. I mean, I know what to think about it. I think it's stupid.
Mm.
Not necessarily I'm not saying.
Might want to watch your mic. Yeah, because your mouth is turned directly away.
I'm like, go ahead. Okay, sorry, my bad. I know that I'm not saying the camps are bad or the outreach resorts, I guess.
Yeah, retreat.
Retreats.
Yeah.
There we go. Thank you. I'm not saying the retreats are bad. What I'm saying is what the people are saying about retreats. The retreats is stupid. Because people are saying like, oh, why do they deserve to go to these retreats and stuff like that?
Mm.
It's like our society is very confusing in the sense that we want justice, but we don't want to see restoration.
Yeah. That's good.
But I think that comes from a lack of. I was actually talking to myself about this today. I know I talk to myself. Whatever. I was talking to myself about this morning, but I was saying that I don't think we'll ever see America truly be righteous without us pursuing God again. Like everyone's looking for justice and for truth and freedom and all this other stuff in the United States. We're looking specifically for justice.
Right.
And we're never going to see it.
Yeah.
Until we return to Christ.
Yeah.
Just reading through Leviticus today, I was like, wow, there are a lot of laws in the Old Testament that they really took strictly, So I think the grand scheme of talking about mega churches and churches in general is to say whether or not it even matters to have a church anymore, and it does, but what matters more is that people are being discipled on how to live righteously, and how to pursue righteousness, and people need conviction. I think conviction has kind of been kicked out of the door. It's like we don't want to bring guilt and shame onto people. But some guilt is okay.
Yeah.
If you murder someone, guilt is a good thing. It's not
it means you're getting convicted.
Right.
You have that shame. You have that. I don't want to say shame and condemnation isn't something that you should be living in,
right.
but it's definitely conviction, and that conviction drives you to seek restoration.
Yeah, to the foot of the cross. You know?
Yeah.
And I think that American society is throwing out the church because we've replaced God's morality with our own. So mega churches and house churches don't really matter anymore because any church doesn't matter anymore because there's no desire for God's law. People are pursuing lawlessness, like in our neighborhoods, right?
Yeah.
People are robbing and stealing in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
Just going to cars and like trying to open the door.
Yeah.
And it seems like such a small thing, but it's such a terrible thing.
Yeah.
You know, that's like someone else's stuff.
Yeah.
How difficult is it to keep your hands off of their stuff?
Right.
You know, it just doesn't make sense. And then like on the Nextdoor app, I was reading. This is why I carry whenever I sell stuff on Marketplace.
Shane carries.
Once in a while. Yeah, if criminals are listening to this, we'll get him first. No, but you know, if I'm carrying or not carrying, if I'm going on Facebook Marketplace, I saw on the Nextdoor app that someone's son-in-law was selling something on Facebook Marketplace.
Mm-hmm.
They went to meet the person, and the guy shot the seller twice in the head.
Dang.
Just for whatever crap they were selling.
Wow.
And I was like, what in the world? Like,
wow.
We live in a society where literally like an iPhone is worth someone's life.
Yeah.
Like, just killing someone for this. This is a stupid piece of technology.
Yeah. And how far did we degrade as a society to get there, right?
Yeah.
Like in regards to morality, like people don't think twice about taking the life of another person
Right.
over
a phone.
Yeah, over something,
Literally,
some random piece of electronics.
This thing is literally going to die in like a year.
Right.
It's not even worth it.
Yeah.
You know, people see the number. Oh, it's worth $500, $1,000. That's a lot of money, so therefore I need to have it.
Yeah,
like,
therefore I need to kill someone to get it.
Yeah, and that kind of degraded into just theft. But even in everything, right?
Yeah.
You know, like with someone else's wife,
Mm-hmm.
like committing adultery. Oh, well, my wife is not good enough, so let me go chase after this guy's wife.
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
Or whatever it is,
Yeah, whatever woman that you're chasing after.
Yeah, let me lie to protect myself. Maybe don't do evil things in the first place, and you won't have to lie.
Right.
Right. Maybe be on time. Maybe do what's right, and you'll not have to sin against God.
Yeah.
But people don't see sin as sin anymore. It's all about what makes us feel good, and we're pursuing our own desires over pursuing obedience to Christ. And I think that's ruining our society. I know it is.
Right. Yeah, so I present this moral dilemma every once in a while to a group that I'm teaching. And the moral dilemma is you see your hated enemy, you're crossing a bridge and you see your hated enemy on one side who's drowning, and you see your favorite pet on the other side who's drowning also. Who do you save? It's so funny how, obviously we all know we should save the person.
Right.
Okay. Save the person. But we all have that inward knowledge, but the majority of the time people say, oh no, screw that guy. I'm going to save my pet.
Yeah.
Because I love my dog.
Yeah.
It's like, what?
Yeah.
Like, a morality has become so skewed in regards to the value of human life. And I think the value of human life is only based in a Judeo-Christian worldview. That once you take the Judeo-Christian worldview away, anything can be anything that you want.
Right.
You can assign value to whatever the heck that you want. You can assign value to this phone and say this is more valuable than a person's life. And so you will take that person's life because you consider this to have more value. But when you have an objective standard in regards to God, you can't do crap like that.
Right.
Because God says it doesn't matter if you hate the person.
Right.
The person is still a person and created in God's image who has infinitely more value than anything that's created.
Right.
And so the concept of human value, human lives are invaluable. It's not something that you just flippantly take. And I think the degradation of our society is because we've become more and more secularized, that we've taken God out of this, taking God out of our schools, taking God out of our government, taking God out of our families, and just relegated him to Christmas and getting gifts and Easter.
He's become a myth.
Yeah.
He's not actually God.
Right.
And And
yeah,
that's,
yeah. And I think you said it right when you said that we all want to follow our own desires, and so we become a really hedonistic society that whatever feels good, that's God.
yeah, that's horrible.
Yeah.
That is really horrible. Yeah, no, and I think that goes back to churches, in general.
Mm.
If more specifically mega churches, because mega churches are a little bit bigger and they're more in the public eye.
Yeah.
Not more, but they are in the public eye. But I think even churches are starting to pull in society. Like we are starting to conform to the patterns of the world rather than being transformed by the renewing of our mind. And churches are demonstrating that by the way that they cave into anything and everything as long as it makes them look good. They're not gonna stand up for truth. They're not gonna stand up. And there have been churches that have been pushing like against that.
Yeah.
And I'm proud of those churches.
You go guys.
Doing what's right. Even when they could lose everything.
Yeah.
And in all honesty, I think some of those, like a lot of those churches have grown. Not necessarily from the secular world, but from Christians who are like, all right, we're going.
Yeah. It's like it's like a filtering process where the weak get filtered out. It's like, oh, this guy's a little too extreme.
Right.
And the guys who want, the gospel preached, the guys who really want the gospel lived out in their life, they end up at those churches.
Yeah, definitely. And I think a lot of time is spent. The problem I have with some churches, right, like specifically with the smaller churches, the house churches, like you were saying, they end up using their perceived knowledge and their philosophy as a way to attack mega churches. And I'm not saying like churches in China and stuff. I'm saying more specifically American churches.
Yeah.
That are home churches or house churches or even just smaller churches. And well, even some mega churches like John MacArthur, for example, would attack Lakewood. And,
I mean, you'll get everyone across the spectrum there.
Right. But I feel like sometimes, I've been to Lakewood before. I've heard a lot of the things that they've preached there. And there are some things like you can attest to this. I bash Lakewood all the time. I literally bash them all the time.
Right.
And I guess that's not really a justification for what I'm about to say. It's like, oh, just because I bash them, I
could say this.
But there are some things that they say where I'm like, that is actually pretty biblical.
Yeah.
Like, I will agree with that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, okay, the Holy Spirit is definitely speaking here in this moment, and I think this is really awesome. And so I think for believers who are strong, I don't think it's necessarily a problem to go to those churches.
Yeah.
But if you're not strong, don't go to those churches because they will lead you astray.
Yeah, if you're not spiritually mature because you don't know how to filter out the bones.
Yeah.
You just
really
eventually choke on one.
Yeah, and I think like that's really dangerous because there are some people who will die for Lakewood, and it's like, yeah, they're not. No, I'm like, I'm not gonna die for them, and I'm not gonna die for any church.
Right.
Church is not my God.
Right,
God is my God.
Yeah.
But no, I think that again, building spiritual maturity, and if a church is seeking to have its members be spiritually mature, then
regardless if it's a house church or mega church,
exactly, it doesn't matter. If they are seeking to pursue spiritual discipline, spiritual maturity, I think it's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Whichever side it's on.
Yeah. So I think we can end right there. So whether you're a mega church, I think the responsibility of mega churches is to ensure that your congregation is getting discipled through that. I don't want to say hierarchy, but from the senior pastor discipling his core group and that core group discipling their core group and all the way down the line. If that's happening on a consistent basis, and obviously pushing, you can't force people to do anything that they don't want to do. So obviously you're going to have churchgoers.
Yeah.
But as long as you're pushing that, I think you're doing a good job as a megachurch. Now, as a house church, as long as you're not like a wound licking club and just like licking each other's wounds because you got offended by a megachurch, and you're actually trying to pursue community and trying to pursue fulfilling the Great Commission, which is to reach out and not become just like a friend group. Because I think that's a huge danger of small groups, is that they just become a friend group and they don't want anyone else to join their friend group.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
not a church. The church is meant to disciple, and the members are to reach out. So as long as you're not doing that as a house church, you're doing good. So I think we can end with that. Did you have any final thoughts?
Oh yeah. Well, here's one last thought. If you are going to church, for speaking to the people who attend once a year,
Yeah, once a year.
and Mass if you're Catholic, but is Mass different than? I don't know anything
No,
about
yeah.
Catholics.
Yeah,
I'm
we're completely
stupid.
clueless about it.
Sorry. No. Okay. If you're attending church, right, just to check off the box, you're wasting your time.
Yeah.
You might as well watch online, and if you might as well not even watch online. Who cares?
You know what? Okay, this is just a side note. I had this crazy conversation with my friend,
My
right?
butt hurts. Sitting in this chair.
Okay.
We need new chairs for next time.
We need some cushions.
Yeah.
I had this conversation with my friend, and we were talking about like what's going to happen at the end of the pandemic. Because remember, at the beginning, everyone went into church online.
Yeah.
And so our conversation was, he said, and it kind of blew me away, but it was true. He said the people who were just going to church to check off a box, the moment they realize they can just stay at home and watch church, they won't be coming back.
Ooh, that's a great point.
When by the time the pandemic ended, he's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
See, a lot of people stopped coming back to church when the pandemic ended. Why? Because they realized it's more comfortable to just watch church on my TV.
Yeah.
But that's not the point of church. The point of church isn't to just get a feel-good message. The point of church is community.
Right.
It's having that discipleship, that fellowship, and you don't get that from a screen.
Right. My dad, I think, said it best. He said that church is not for the unbeliever, but it is for believers.
Yeah.
It is a body of believers, not unbelievers coming into church. I mean, unbelievers can come.
Right.
You know.
But that's not the main point.
Right.
Yeah.
It's for believers
Yeah.
to grow together and to pursue God together.
Yeah. And the
Yeah.
believer's responsibility is to reach out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. To those unbelievers.
Wow. Well, that was a good note to end on.
That was deep.
So I think this is going to be our first official episode of Tea Talks.
This is great. My butt really hurts in this chair, man. My leg is literally like falling asleep.
Metal chairs.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so hope you guys commented on down below on what we're drinking. I am drinking jasmine tea, everyone's favorite jasmine tea.
Ready?
This is actually my favorite cup. Now, drum roll, please, for Shane. What are
I'm
you drinking, Shane?
drinking nothing. I'm drinking water.
He's drinking air tea. Okay,
Jesus' water.
Je-
Holy water. I'm Catholic. No, I'm not.
It was blessed by the priest.
Yeah, it was
You're drinking baptism water right there.
Blessed by Pope Francis himself. Or what's his name? Is his name Pope Francis? Pope Krishna? Pope? That's probably That's probably blasphemous. I'm gonna get stoned to death.
Krishna.
All the Catholics are literally like, we're gonna
The
kill
Dalai
this guy.
Lama Pope.
Yeah, right.
That's what we
They're literally about to kill me.
That'll be at the end times.
What if Donald Trump was
Presenting
the Pope?
Pastor Dalai Lama Pope.
He's not the Antichrist. Presenting Dalai Lama Pope, who is not the Antichrist, we promise.
We're building a temple in Jerusalem
In
on
his-
the Dome of the Rock.
In his name.
Yeah.
But he's not the Antichrist.
Definitely not the Antichrist. Oh, wow. Hope you guys enjoyed this podcast.
What if
And,
Trump was the Pope? How crazy would that be?
That'd be insane. That'd be so insane.
It's gonna be huge. We're gonna make Solomon's Temple huge.
It's going to be huge. I guarantee it. And guess who's going to pay for it? The Arabs. The Arabs are going to pay for it.
The Muslims. We'll make them pay for
Make
it
'em
all.
pay for
They'll
this
pay for
church.
God's kingdom. I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message. And I hate Rosie O'Donnell.
Okay, so just
But I love Jesus.
okay. So got off track there a little bit, but we do love Jesus, and any topic goes.
At least
So
we think we do.
if you guys have any suggestions on what the next topic we should cover should be, leave a comment down
That
below.
sounded weird.
We hope this podcast blows up, and we'll see how it goes.
They're gonna blow us up? No, they're not. We refuse.
We'll see you guys later on Tea Talks.
See you next time.